Welcome to Which, the Women in Technology Creative Industries Hub, elevating the voices of women in tech. My name is Bishi, the founder of Which. In this podcast, I'll be talking to a woman in tech about her work, journey. In this episode, I'll be talking to electronic music composer, producer, and musician, Gazelle Twin. Please do like, review, and subscribe. We're a new podcast, and every bit of support helps. Hello and welcome to Creative Women in Tech, Elizabeth. How are you doing in this current lockdown?
Hi. Getting through, I think. Not really getting much work done, but I'm looking after my 4-year-old boy and my 4-month-old boy. And we are still kind of trying to figure out our daily schedule and how we should be doing things, and how much we can achieve is kind of based on our amount of sleep that we've had the night before. It's just, they're just filling up all my space at the moment. So in some ways that's really good, just because it's a nice distraction, really. Otherwise I think I'd be just getting sucked into the news and all kinds of nasty corners of the internet. So yeah, doing all right. I'm pretty chomping at the bit to get back to writing, which is my task for this year, but and some other projects and stuff. But yeah, I think just at the moment it's just about staying safe, really, isn't it? And staying healthy and just looking out for your families and friends and things.
Absolutely. So. Well, even so, it's been a really interesting year in terms of releases which are either imminent or interesting projects that have come out this year. I'm going to get to that a little bit later. I first wanted to start with asking you, where did your journey with music begin?
Oh, good question. Well, I was a child, definitely. I was brought up in a very, it's going to sound very privileged and very middle class, but I was brought up in a really musical household, and my parents played a lot of music when we were babies and children. So, and a lot of it was classical or jazz. So I sort of just grew up with that all around me, really, which I'm really pleased that I had that privilege. So it kind of started there. My family were all quite musical. My dad plays the guitar. My brother plays the guitar. Everybody sings and has an ability in some way or another that's creative. So it just kind of became part of my life, really, from the word go. But I think probably a turning point in my, being a child messing around with a piano and a recorder, to me actually like starting to build the foundation of a career, if I could call it that, was when I was probably a teenager, and I was kind of using very basic cassette based recording equipment and a synthesizer and guitar, or anything that had tan, really, that was in the house, just to write my own songs, which were pretty much just all like Portishead rip-offs. But even so, I was just getting into like, early kind of really super basic production and just mood music, electronic dark stuff. And I kind of often say, like, that's where I started recording and producing, really. And then I kind of, went and did my sort of formal education in music and sort of learned, the academic side, and learned how to write music for orchestras or whatever. But I always kind of went back to that original, just feeling my way, just using whatever was to hand and just producing from my, from my own kind of feeling, from my own core, really. So it kind of grew very naturally, I'd say.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you were talking about early tape recorders and that kind of technology, because one of the questions I was going to ask is, like, what were the first sort of bits of technology that that started to impact your music making?
But now that I've heard about these Portishead rip-off styles, which sound great, by the way, do you still have them? Or
I think they're somewhere on a cassette somewhere. I need to rescue them, really. I mean, I don't think I've ever come to make these public for listening, but yeah, they're nice things to have, I think. But I think I used to just like have them on my Walkman at school, and I just used to sort of play them to the odd person and, you know, be like, yeah, I just made this. Yeah. But yeah, no, I don't think I really ever showed them to anyone. They're very they're very teenaged, if you know what I mean.
yeah, but that's, I mean, that's where, I mean, you know, so much raw, you know, so many raw emotions happening during our teenage years, you know,
Mm.
and it's interesting. I was wondering because I've been listening to a lot of your music all afternoon, which I've loved, and there's a really interesting interplay between what's sounds like quite formal training, not that it's, you know, staid or stiff in any way, but I definitely get a sense that this person must have had some kind of training, and that's juxtaposed by things that feel very industrial. And there's a polarity in your music between the beautiful and the absolutely brutal, and I think that comes down to even in your presentation and your videos, and you know, and I've never said this to you, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to say it, but you know, you're a beautiful woman, and you know, and yeah, there are these polarities between your beauty and the brutalness. And was that a conscious decision, or was that something that you felt your way through?
Oh, thank you. I have to say thank you very much for the compliment. Um, as always, I feel very plain in your glamorous presence, Bishi. I'm always like, oh, I should have maybe worn some colour this time. It's just not. It's just not what I do. This is my Zoom shirt.
No, I love it. I'm not complaining.
Was it a conscious thing? Yeah, it was really. I think I grew up with quite a vain family, really, and I definitely had. I think, as many teenagers growing up in the 80s and 90s will have possibly shared, is you know, the kind of culture that we were bombarded with and still are, maybe worse now. I was very aspirational to that, and I enjoyed, you know, dressing up and wearing makeup and pretending I was a model, basically. And I think I always had that in my head, that I wanted that, you know, that I had to push that aspect of myself, and that was kind of where my identity was founded. And there's nothing wrong with that if, you know, what you have to back it up is, you know, substantial. And I still wear makeup and I still like dressing up, but there came a point where, because of how it affected me as a teen physically, I think you know, because I did a presentation with you where I talked about my teenage years, which were very pivotal in that I suffered from a really terrible body image, and that was really destructive, and just affected the rest of my life, really. But I didn't really realise it until I think I was trying to sort of establish myself as a solo artist, and trying to establish myself in a way that maybe kind of tapped into those negative feelings, and I started to feel those negative self-critical things coming back, and they were kind of destroying that kind of whole process for me a little bit. And I just thought, well, what if I just eliminate those, and what if I just, you know, forget about anything to do with my image and my features and my body, and I just, you know, take the focus straight into the music, if I can. Is it possible? It was kind of an experiment. I didn't know if I could do it. And that's kind of just where Gazelle Twin was born. It was just born out of, I mean, that wasn't the only reason, but, you know, I just wanted to sidestep that whole quandary, really. I didn't want to sort of worry about how I looked on stage, how I'd be photographed. And you could argue that that's kind of a sort of extreme position of vanity as well, just by being completely in control, by completely taking myself away from it. But it really was just, it just felt like the right thing to do, and it also enabled me to just open up a whole other world of creative weirdness that I kind of had always been interested in anyway, and that I couldn't really have done always just with my own identity and my own sort of face and stuff being present, or at least I didn't think that, and I don't think that yet. And then it was just that pressure that we all feel, especially as women in this industry. Yeah. I'm 40 this year, and I could feel that if I'd gone that route, I think I would have started to have suffered more, maybe, because it's from the other artists that I've spoken to of similar ages, it's definitely a thing, it's definitely a setback, and it's shit. But I mean, you don't even have to take that into question, really. You can go another way. Yeah. So that was the plan. I think I also really I grew to really love the transformative qualities of wearing costume and wearing masks. That initially it was just a way to sort of, omit myself from the kind of the visual, but over time, when I had experience of performing in that way, I felt like the rush was like immense just to perform, and to be kind of, I've described it recently as like a virtual reality of just being in kind of contained in another person's head, and I really have found that one of the most liberating things of choosing to not show my face, and the impact that it has on an audience as well. I think probably coupled with the aggressive sort of music stuff that you were talking about, it just makes me feel quite powerful. And I think I'd never have managed to get to that point, I think, or at least if I had gone the route without wearing costume, it would have taken me a long time and a lot to have broken through that initial self-consciousness. So yeah, that's my really long answer to that question.
No, I love it. Like, as you were speaking, I was thinking of certain eras of Cindy Sherman. I was also thinking of it was coming into my head, that Gillian Wearing piece where she's covered in plaster and she's in Peckham Rye Rail, just in the arch when you come out of Peckham Rye, and she's totally covered with like with a wig on. And
oh wow,
what else I was thinking of? Lynn Hirschman Leeson, who's another artist that I'm just becoming more and more obsessed with. She's one of the first artists to make a holographic mirror, and it was Tilda Swinton's face. I don't know if you've ever seen the film Technolust. Absolutely, really, really amazing. But she was one of the first artists to ever make a holographic mirror of Tilda's face, sort of talking at you. But in the 60s and 70s, she created this really... I'm forgetting the name of the character, but she created this really scary avatar. So like full like face coverage and like a curly wig, and this character, she would get other people to dress up as this character. So there was 5 of them in an army, and really scary but conceptual. And I keep thinking about the fact that she was doing this at the same time that all of Andy Warhol and all the factory and all of that was going on. So that was a lot more beautified and a lot more keying into the escape of glamour and Hollywood, which is where I think I get a lot of what I'm into, is that the glamour is more just about escaping and kind of being out of my body, even though I get tons of shit for it. But also I was having a really interesting conversation with another composer yesterday, and we were talking about how you're read as a woman in professional situations, and she's a lot more butch, which I also think is fabulous. But it's almost like it doesn't matter if you're really attractive or if you're butch or if you're young or if you're old, you will just get shit for it, like, not to be too depressing, but it comes with challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's the whole structure, isn't it, that we're all very aware of now. And obviously people have been challenging that for a while, but we need to ramp it up a bit, and I think eventually, maybe, just maybe, things will equalise slightly, but who knows?
Yeah,
I've had my fair share of, oh, what the fuck are you wearing? That kind of thing. I've been in dressing rooms getting ready and had like techies walk in and just burst out laughing at me. And just stuff like, what the fuck? Like zero, people just want to, or people want to reach and grab and pull off your hat or whatever, or your face covering, and yeah, it provokes something in people, but that provocation is so much more interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because because you're already armed with, I'm doing this because of this exact thing. So yeah, it's quite nice to just rile people up a little bit, even though it can be nasty. And I'm sorry to hear you get that. And I know you've said before that you kind of get that sort of certain type of person who just wants to cut you down, and they just don't know, they don't know the context or anything behind it. They just see the end product and they make their judgment. And I mean, that's kind of the culture we live in, isn't it? I mean, it couldn't be more like that now, really, with the way people are consumed as individuals on TV, especially. Voted up or down or whatever.
Yeah, totally. Well, my friend's little daughter is 11 and she already wants lip filler, and it's like we're trying to sit the little girl down and say, listen, you are talented, because she's really talented, really musical. You are talented. You are already beautiful inside. You don't need to do anything. That's it. It's already there. Like, so yeah. Anyway, let's talk about some of the releases that have come out recently. I was listening to, it was the soundtrack for Nocturne. Is that the correct title for this album?
Yeah.
Or for the soundtrack? So it's absolutely beautiful, and I did a big Bandcamp half pissed shopping spree in December and got that. I was so happy.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love it. I love Bandcamp. What was the process of making this music, and are there any synths or any microphones, or were there any specific recording techniques or equipment that you were into while you were making this soundtrack?
So, well, to start off with, it was a really nice brief that I had from the director, who is a musician herself, a classically trained violinist, and she, a lot of the film, without giving too much away, is set in a music school, a music conservatoire in America, and it kind of just deals with the whole sort of horrible kind of competitive drama of that situation when you're a teenager, which she very much experienced. And so she wanted there to be a really strong classical element, obviously in all the whole story, but in the music as well. So she came to me just through my existing music, and just, I guess she heard that kind of maybe classical edge that you were talking about, maybe, I don't know, but she sort of wanted to meld the two. So she was really, really direct and really clear about the brief. It was really easy to sort of just lock into that. So some of the pieces that we were using as a basis were existing pieces, so 16th, 17th century pieces of music that I was kind of just echoing, really, and just trying to build and merge into this kind of slightly, what's the word, kind of witchy, sort of witchcrafty type of world that emerges. So it was really enjoyable, and it was just, I was very given a lot of freedom to sort of just experiment, which is nice, and do what I do, which is mostly use voice to create kind of certain textures and drama. And it ranged from really simple kind of choral arrangements using my voice, pitched down, just simple digital repitching, to kind of having to go back to the keyboard and actually like learn to play stuff again, because I don't really do a lot of playing now. Like it's so much of it is computer based and vocal based, and you know I can automate stuff without having to actually physically play it. But with this, I was actually got sent the sheet music for the piece that much of the score is based around, which is by Giuseppe Tartini, and I was having to sort of go back and like clumsily like key in all the notes so I could work out and rearrange a vocal version. It was quite a challenge for my sort of music brain, which I appreciated because it kind of got me back into it again. But really, like in tech terms, so simple. What I use is very simple. It's usually here in my slightly messy studio with my sort of Beta 58 microphone, which I usually just use because it's like the most live sort of feel that I can get when I'm singing. I don't really like having to stand really still near condenser mics, and I don't really like the kind of the harshness of them. Sometimes I quite like to be able to yell and shout and not have to and move around and not have to sort of worry about kind of, you know, wrecking my equipment. So my trusty Beta 58 and Ableton, which is what I've used since the beginning, sort of self-taught. I'm just trying to think if I used anything specific. I mean, just in terms of kind of treatments, I tend to use very similar processes, but try to, you know, like use them sparingly. So I use a lot of repitching of my vocal, which I've already mentioned. But in this one, I think I whipped out my my recorder in this as well and did some really low. Well, as low as I could get on the recorder, and then repitched those as well. It just kind of gives quite a hellish drone effect. But yeah, I wish I could say, yeah, but this synth, but I use this synth. I've got a lovely Moog Mother 32 in DFAB right here, which I wish I could say, yeah, I've kind of, like used loads of that, but I actually didn't use that in this, because I think what I just found that what I had was like making synths from my voice and kind of using Ableton's kind of amazing sounds to sort of just build that world, really. Because I think the brief, whilst there was this classical kind of requirement, there was also this discussion about there being quite a contemporary electronic feel. And I think Ableton was perfect for that, actually. So yeah. If I think of anything else, I might have forgotten something that I've used, but I'll let you know if I do.
Yeah.
But otherwise, super simple.
Oh, yeah. No worries. And you recently had a track on the Cyberpunk compilation. That's a video game. Did you make something new for that, or did they license something that was already around? Or
yeah, no, I was approached by the production team. So this was ages ago, probably 2018. And I think I had this conversation earlier, actually. I can't remember how they discovered my music. I never actually asked, but one way or another, one of the production people was into my stuff and just said, we're inviting people to write tracks for this game. You have to sign this NDA. And yeah, this is the deal, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, once it's released, we'll probably release it, whatever. Once the game's released, we'll release it on a soundtrack. So it was really straightforward. They just said, we'd just like something with the beat in, and, you know, told me the theme of the game and just kind of gave me the space to do it. And I had something that was really like early stage demo that worked really well. I just finished writing Pastoral, and it was just it had that kind of edgy vibe. So I kind of shelved that for them and did it and waited for the game to come out, which took ages. But yeah, it was fun. It was really fun to do that. I was really stoked to be asked, because I love video games if I ever get the time to play them again. And this one kind of seemed cool. It's had some controversy around it, as I'm sure you know, with all kinds of different things, from the game itself to the culture around the company of the game, but I won't get into that now.
okay. Yeah, like, I mean, what I know mainly about it is it's got like a really kick-ass, just Grimes wrote something. Sophie, rest in peace, Sophie.
Yeah.
You wrote something. I saw, I saw a bunch of other names that, are either artists that I really like or people who sound really interesting. So whoever put that soundtrack together has got some serious taste, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it was amazing to be part of that. And even now when I see it pop up and, see my name alongside some of those kind of powerhouses, I just think, oh, wow, that was good. That was a fluke. I'll take it.
I saw a picture on Facebook of one of my friends' 2-year-old daughters with a copy of the vinyl, kind of eating the corner, which I thought was really.
Oh wow!
He has like a tiny level on, and he's like dog-eared eating the side of a record. Just like that. That is where social media is great. So yeah, I wanted to talk to you and ask you about your upcoming album with the NYX Choir, Deep England. So who are NYX and how did this collaboration come together?
Well, NYX are a really amazing set of women who use electronic machines to produce and perform choral music, which, what is not to love about that combination of things. They are led by the creative director Shana Gorman, who arranges and writes quite a bit of the music as well, and she's got an amazing voice. She's just in her own right an incredible musician. And I don't know when they set up, actually. It might be, I know that it wasn't that long ago, but maybe 2016, 2017, I might be wrong there. But they approached me in the summer of 2018 with a project that they were working on, which was a series of concerts intended to be like deep listening concerts. So not kind of your standard, audience plus support bands and then performance and then over and everything. It was more like inviting the audience to really come in and really become immersed in something large scale in terms of the sound that they were making, which I thought was just really unusual and really exciting, because I don't think I'd really ever heard of anything like that. And at the time I was just about to release Pastoral. So the idea, I think, originally would have been to have created some music especially for the choir that we would have then performed. But at that point in time, I'd only just managed to finish this record after like 4 years. And I just knew I wouldn't have time to like write a whole other bunch of stuff. So we decided to just take a couple of those tracks and just rework them into the choir, into the setup that they had at that time, which I think was about 9 people. So that's what we did, and the results were incredible. Sean arranged the music really perfectly and expertly, and we just had a couple of rehearsals in London and then did this show, and I've forgotten the name of the venue.
Is it King's Place?
No, it wasn't King's Place. It was somewhere a bit smaller than that, and it was kind of Bethnal Greeny type way. Oh, I should have looked this up before I did this. Anyway, we did the show, and it was really great, and it just felt amazing. We had full costume, and they just put everything into it. Just so enthusiastic and really came on the ride with me. And Pastoral was quite a new thing for me at that point. I think we performed this choral version. I'd only done a handful of shows for the Pastoral tour, so it was all quite new to me. And then I had this new other version of things, and I was still kind of getting to grips with what it was all about. And it was just amazing to have that shape the rest of my sort of tour journey for that. It was really quite an experience that I won't ever forget. So I was really thrilled when they came back the year after and just said, let's do the show again, but let's do it. Let's get some funding. Let's do proper production. And they're just amazing. I have to say they're the most organised group I've ever met. Like it just pales in comparison the amount of like organisational skills that I have compared to them. Luckily I have a manager to organise me and agents and things, but like they are just amazing. They have the most amazing producer, Philippa Niels and Josh Thomas. They just know who to go to, and they know what they're doing, and they're brilliant, and they're really well connected and lovely.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah, no, that's so good to hear, and it's so important in collaboration that it's. I think about this a lot. Ultimately, everything is just about good and great relationships where you really have each other's back. And when you're in it, when you're making something and you feel that, it transforms the entire process for everybody.
Oh God, totally. Yeah. And I have to add, I work in quite a solitary way, and I've been in bands before, but never with never with just women. And this experience for me was initially quite daunting because I think I've always had this kind of fear of groups of women just from my history.
Yeah,
yeah, women are scary. They can be amazing and scary at the same time. But it was couldn't have imagined a more wonderful group of people, and I just kind of felt so at ease with them, and just spending time singing together was something I've never done either. I just felt, the way that they prepared for concerts really won me over too. I think you're talking about having each other's back. Well, literally, before we did our first show, we all got into a ring and we were kind of massaging each other and doing vocal warm-ups and stuff, and I was just sitting there thinking, I've never done this before again. Normally I'm just sat in a dressing room with like one other person and maybe like having a swig of something and just like getting into my kind of zone. But this was like a whole other plane of like this sort of female kind of energy that was really intriguing and new to me, actually. So it was just really cool. Really cool.
And and the album was produced by Marta Salogni?
Yes. Yeah. She recorded and engineered it as well.
Amazing. And what was it like working with her? Can you talk me through the process of what that was like?
Just a dream. She's just so on it. She's really open and really knowledgeable about what we were trying to achieve, and she's just fluid. She had her face never kind of. We had a really tight turnaround with it. So we had like 2 days to record it, and it took pretty much best part of a day to set up the studio. It's because it was such, it's like 7. I think at the end it was 7 vocalists, each with their own completely different electronic setup, all in one room. So we wanted to capture natural voice plus the electronics without too much bleed, but get the right levels with the monitoring. And it was a bit of a nightmare, to be fair. I don't know how I'd have managed that, but she was just solid, just happy, positive all the way through. It was brilliant.
Yeah, no, she seems absolutely lovely. I just opened the quite recent Saffron 7 Days of Sound festival, which was so much fun to do, and she hosted a session where she showed how she'd mixed one of Shura's tracks, and the organisation of her mix project, it was all rainbow colours, and it like made me feel calm. It was like the Marie Kondo mixing projects, and just so beautifully laid out and so beautifully explained. And I think watching other people's process, it's very healing, because essentially as music creators and as producers, we're all kind of doing the same thing, but we just all have our we all have our own creative way of approaching things, and that's what talent is ultimately. It's that thing that's hard to define, and it was just this beautiful rainbow coloured project that it makes me feel like calm just looking at it.
Yeah, come to think of it, looking at the arrangements, yeah, it was pretty well ordered up, really nice and neat. I dread, I mean, I guess because she produces and she engineers and she mixes and she has people present with her in her studio quite often. I guess, she's found the well, she's just organised. Whether or not she's got anyone there, but I hate anyone to see my arrangements. Oh my god, I make such a mess. I
Yeah,
do so many things that I know I don't need to do, but this is from someone who like learned how to produce, from like putting sellotape over the corners of a cassette tape and pressing record. That's my level of organisational skills and technique.
yeah. Well, I've got to say, it's working. Whatever it is, however it is, people love it, and it's really
Bless you.
And so people can pre-order this on Gazelle Twin Bandcamp and on NYX Bandcamp as well.
I think it will just be the NYX Bandcamp at the moment. I don't think I think it's just the NYX Bandcamp, yeah, because they're releasing Deep England on. They're setting up a label, so I think it's NYX Collective Records. They're called. So yeah, just through them.
Yeah, yeah.
But the vinyl is available on my shop as well as their shop.
And are you going to be doing anything for the launch of that, or is that kind of hush hush, or is it a bit, viral online, blah blah?
It will most likely be online
Sorry,
stuff.
such an awful word. Sorry.
No. It's a word we're all very familiar with right now. But yeah, no, it's. I think we're talking about some cool stuff. We've got a few things to kind of tease before the official release in March. So there's going to be a bit more to sort of see and hear before then. And we're talking about ways to, because obviously, like the plan originally was that we'd get to perform this again live, hopefully. But hopefully there might be a time where we can do that in the near future. But I think we're just, for now, safer bet is kind of just trying to work out alternative ways. So they are expertly researching how to do that, and yeah, I mean, there's a few really cool things I think that we've been discussing that I hope will happen.
Yeah, great. And to round off this interview, I wanted to ask you, who is a woman in tech who's really captured you at present?
I'm just really impressed with anyone who can use machines to kind of make something beautiful. I'm just trying to think who can do. I know several people who can do that really well.
Do you mean machines as in AI, or do you mean machines as in analog, or how would you define machines?
I mean, anything that's kind of, a processing machine that can kind of transform, ideas into a new type of reality. I was listening recently to Anna Meredith's amazing new album, and she's someone I think I can identify, although she's kind of way up there in the sort of classical composer stakes, but like I can identify with her, the common ground that we have, which is this kind of classical background and using technology in really, in her case, really interesting ways. My son really loves her music. I think there's just because there's something so complex about it, and I genuinely can't work out sometimes whether her music is kind of composed or if it's kind of machine made. Like sometimes it's hard to tell, which is really impressive. I know she does use some technology, but I think that's actually really impressive to hear music where you're kind of, oh my, is this someone just playing this, and has it been composed, or has this been chopped up, in loops and kind of sampled? It's really quite phenomenal. So yeah, I'd say she's pretty awe-inspiring as a figure.
Yeah.
There's a female figure in tech.
100% agreed. But if you want to hear about her techniques, I already interviewed her for this series. Yeah. One of the things that I love about her is that she loves presets. She doesn't care. She's not into, she's like a preset will do. And I've seen her do various talks about her compositional technique where she shows drawings, and it's all very visual, and it's really, really quite extraordinary. So yeah, we love Anna. Elizabeth,
Cool.
thank you so much for your time. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. It's always a pleasure to just absorb your art and listen to your music. And thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for this week's wonderful interview, Elizabeth. And thank you all for tuning in and subscribing. Thanks to The Rattle for all of their technical support on this podcast. You can find out more about Witch at Instagram, Facebook and twitter.com/witch. You can go to witch.com to find out news and updates and to sign up to our monthly newsletter. Until next time, thanks and goodbye.